Hey team, today we're going to be talking about leadership and being a successful young adult with Mr. Pete Hardesty. Pete is a 1997 graduate of the University of Virginia, and he's been on Younglife staff for 21 years. Younglife is an international Christian nonprofit that is focused on outreach to middle schoolers, high schoolers, and college students. So through his 21 years of experience, Pete has written a book called Adulting 101. And that book is focused on preparing young people to transition successfully and to become adults out on their own. I have a high school senior. I read the book and
you got an early copy.
I got an early cut of it and really enjoyed it, and asked Pete to come on the show today. So Pete, just start off and kind of give us an overview of what Adulting 101 is about.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks so much for having me. Well, I've been working with college students and high school students for a long time. And a couple years ago, a college student came up to me, and we were going away on a trip. We were taking a bunch of college students away, and he had to pay for this trip we were going on. He brought a check to me, and he said, I don't know what to do with this.
What is this? Never seen this before.
I said, what do you mean? He said, I don't know what to put where. I said, you don't know how to fill out a check? He was a junior in college. And he said, no. It was check 101. I still remember. I thought, well, this is the first one, obviously. And then a couple months later, we were writing notes, thank you notes to some people who had supported us. And some of the college students were with us. They were helping us write notes. And we put up on this screen the return address and then the to address, the to and from. And another college student came up and said, I don't know where to put these two addresses. Where? I said, you don't know how to fill out, you don't know how to address an envelope? No. Have you ever written anything, handwritten? No. Okay, well, we need some help. So we realized that schools are doing a great job of preparing students, teaching them the subjects that they're majoring in, maybe for their careers, but maybe not teaching them some skills, some tools that they were gonna need for real life right when they graduated.
My favorite chapter was chapter 5, which was called Lead or Die. And in there you say, before you can lead others, you have to be able to lead yourself. What did you mean by that?
You know, I think leadership begins on the inside. It begins with you and with me. And we've seen story after story after story the last couple of years of people's talent carrying them to where their character couldn't sustain them, because they hadn't built up the inner man or the inner woman. They hadn't led. If you don't lead yourself, you aren't in a position to lead anyone else. You can't lead others.
Absolutely. And so another thing you talked about, another kind of main principle you talked about in your leadership chapter was the importance of developing others. And in the Army, that's something we take very seriously. Leader development is a big priority. Talk about why this was important and why you included it in your book.
Yeah, this is one of the keys to life. If you can give your life away and really set others up for success, your life is actually better. It's this odd, ironic twist. And the world will tell you, look out for yourself, look out for number one, only pay attention to yourself. And that's actually the recipe for disaster. One of my mentors would always say, what we do in life is we hold a crown above other people's heads and we let them grow up into it. I think that's a great life theme. And when you do set others up for success and not care who gets the credit, you're actually the one that's more fulfilled, and you actually have a bigger impact in life.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. I think holding a crown out and helping our subordinates, our employees, our direct reports grow into it, and our children too. It's a powerful image, and I really appreciate that in the book. Pete, you also talked about 360-degree leadership. Kind of expand on that. What were you talking about when you said 360-degree leadership?
Yeah, 360-degree leadership is the thought that every single person is influencing everyone they're around at all times. And so most people think of leadership as you're leading your employees or your direct reports or anyone below you, whereas actually you also lead your peers, people you're around in your organization or company, and then also you lead your boss and your boss's boss. And so it's a little bit more of an art than a science, but it's learning how and knowing that you have the influence and knowing how to lead people that you don't maybe have direct authority with. but we all are leading those people. So it's really becoming a well-rounded leader, and also, again, developing that inner man or inner woman so that you are in a position where you can influence and lead up the chain, down and sideways.
Great. So Pete, you also talked in the book about 12 ways to be wildly successful at work, and this was a little bit more of a practical ways for young people to be successful. Give me 2 or 3 of those ways.
Most of the job descriptions I've seen are 3 to 4 to 5 pages long, and so that's, I think, one of the most crucial things is for people new in a job is to sit with their boss and say, what are the 2 or 3 things that are the most important aspects of my job? I'm going to do a lot more than this, of course, but what are the 2 or 3 things you really want me to do well? And then you make sure you go and you do those, you knock those out of the park, you do those really excellently. The other thing I would say is, especially for people that are new into the workforce or young people, is to work really, 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 really hard. A lot of this generation has a reputation for not wanting to work that hard. That's not been my experience with these young people, but I think you earn respect. So many things can happen when you just work hard and you're willing to pay the price. And the last thing I would say, and this is kind of a sneaky advantage, a secret, I think there's such great things, is to get into the habit of writing handwritten notes. In our day and age of quick texts or digital calls and everything, it's to get a handwritten note, it communicates so much. And so I think those stand out and communicate even more than the words that you write on them.
So staying on the practical side of things, what are the top 1 or 2 tips you would give to students as they get ready to head off to college?
Man, I would say enjoy it. Hundreds of millions of people have gone before you and made it, so I know it's a little bit stressful.
You can do it.
You can do it, yeah. I would say one thing is you want to find a couple close friends who share the same values. That's going to be crucial. And what you do those first 3 or 4 weeks will set a pattern for what you do for those 4 or 5 or 6 years in college. Yeah. So find, they say that one of my mentors would say that you become like the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I think that's actually a true statement. So make sure you're finding a couple people who you really connect at a deep level with. The other thing I would say is find a couple people that you come from a very different background from. Maybe they have a different, they grew up in a different country. Maybe they have a different color skin. They're from a different part of the U.S. Whatever it is and really get to know them. I think that'll expand your soul, and it's really, diversity is, we can't afford not to invest in diversity.
That's a great way to put it, and I think it's so important, especially like you said, as you transition, that you're deliberate about who you spend time with, and those are the people you're going to become like. All right, so now the parents are on the hot seat. What are the top 1 or 2 tips you would give to parents of high school kids who are getting ready to go out into the world or go out into college?
Man, well, that's a great task. You've raised your child and you're sending them off to college. So thanks for doing that. I would say help them to know that what they believe is the most important thing about them, because it's kind of like that top button on a shirt, right? You start buttoning down, every now and then you have an extra button or your collar's up here. If you got the top button off, everything else is off. So It's really that inner man is the top button. Who are they? Who are your kids when no one is looking? That's another definition for character, because what's on the inside is eventually going to come out onto the outside. You can't hide it. You can only hide it for so long. And I would say be a good example to them. Show them what it means to be a good person, a good man, a good woman. Show them what it means to have character, to have integrity, to be honest. And then the last thing I would say, be intentional with them of developing their life skills, because we've seen a lot of college kids who would flounder or do flounder when they get to college because they don't know how to do a load of wash. So take them with you when you maybe go buy a car or go buy a house or go do things you might not think to include them in. Take them with you, because that'll help them in their life experience.
That was a great tip for all the parents out there. And Pete, last kind of 2 questions I like to always include is, who's the best leader you ever worked for, and what did you learn from them that you emulate in your leadership style?
I've gotten to work with so many incredible men and women in my life, and I have had one boss for 18 of my 21 years in Younglife staff.
He better be good.
I know, he's really good, yeah. His name's Scott Hamilton, not the ice skater, a different guy. And I would say the two things that stand out to me about him are, one, just his integrity and his character. What you see is what you get. He's the same person hanging out with a couple people than he is speaking to crowds. I would also say, in that he demonstrates principle-based leadership more consistently and better than anyone I've ever been around. The other thing is someone that I mentioned as far as being friends with someone that you're not, that you might be different from. One of our mentors also says that if we don't consciously include people that are different than us, we will subconsciously exclude them. And he does a great job of sweeping his arms wide and including people in our organization.
That's got to be really important in Younglife, and it sounds like he's a great mentor that's taught you a lot. So we'll close with this, with your mic. Any final thoughts on leadership you would leave to the audience?
I have two quick thoughts. One is take a big swing at something. I would say dream big, take a risk. I think sometimes we cheat ourselves. We almost dream too small. We set our goals too small. The other thing is, especially for young people, when they're 23, a lot of times, Eric, they want the job they probably should have when they're 37. And so they're looking maybe a little bit. Yeah, they want it now. They want that job now, and they think they deserve it now. But what they don't realize is they need to look to that person, and that person has paid a price, that 37-year-old, or maybe the 47-year-old or 67-year-old.
They got there with hard work and...
Exactly. They have kind of developed themselves over that time. So then it goes back to them. Take steps in the right direction, and you'll be shocked at what you can accomplish over the long haul. Outstanding.
Well, Pete, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate and thank you for all the work you do with our young people out there. And thanks for being on Lopez on Leadership.
Thanks, Eric. Great to be here. Thanks, you guys.